Rise of Tiamat is probably one of the most different types of pre-written campaigns that you can run that's made by Wizards of the Coast. Just by the way it's structured and the way the campaign plays out is very, very different than your standard typical campaign where your party is going from one place to the next in pursuit of a common enemy or a common goal. While that is present in this campaign, it's structured very differently, and it plays a lot more into politics than constant adventuring. Now, you may be hearing the word politics and going, that sounds awful, I really don't want to run that campaign, but listen, it's not that bad. It's actually quite fun. The Rise of Tiamat, of course, starts off where you last left in Horde of the Dragon Queen. However, if you have not run Horde of the Dragon Queen, I would recommend running some form of homebrew campaign, or at least make an overall written backstory for everyone to get you into the Rise of Tiamat, or do something to tie them into it. Starting Rise of Tiamat off without any kind of lead up to it is very jarring and won't really work for a lot of players. And if you don't know what Horde of the Dragon Queen is and you want to see what that is, I have a review of it right here that you can check out before watching this video if you're inclined to. But right off the hop, your party has at least finished crashing the damn castle into the side of the mountains from Horde of the Dragon Queen, and now they need to get all the way back to Waterdeep. Well, how to do that? Well, a raven swings by and drops them a scroll of teleportation. Now here's the problem with that right off the hop. If you have a party, like I did, that consists of a cleric, a monk, a rogue, and a barbarian, none of them can cast teleportation circle, so this scroll is useless. Now, what does the book tell you if you don't have a party that can use teleportation scroll? Let me tell you, if none of the characters can use a teleport scroll, they'll need to seek out an NPC who can. Just don't make it too difficult. An NPC on the side of a fucking random mountain who can use teleportation scroll? Sure, that's not weird at all! So once you've bullshitted your way through finding an NPC on the side of a barren mountain that can cast teleportation, sure, you find that and you get your party all the way back into Waterdeep, and then the adventure begins. Now, the way Rise of Tiamat is structured is that you are centered in Waterdeep, and a lot of your time will be spent in Waterdeep. So get to know Waterdeep very, very well. There's a lot of people with a lot of power in Waterdeep that your party is going to become very familiar with. I would recommend learning about them as much as you can if you want to play them accurately and make them feel like real people, because trust me, you will be playing these NPCs a lot. Your party is going to be seeking them out to have individual discussions. They're going to be part of giant group meetings. They're going to be part of a city council meeting that has to do with the Cult of the Dragon and what to do. You're going to be playing these characters all throughout the entire damn campaign, so I recommend learning about them quite a bit. But the way this game works is that the Council of Waterdeep includes your party into all of their discussions and politics about what's going on with the Cult of the Dragon and how to stop it. And you, the party members, are the front liners. So your party has to go out to all these different locations and thwart the Cult of the Dragon, or find out what they're doing and what's going on, and then report back to the Council at Waterdeep. So your party will constantly be Council of Waterdeep talking to all the NPCs about what's going on, and they go out and do a mission or two, they come back to Waterdeep, they go out and do a mission or two, they come back to Waterdeep, and over again for the vast majority of this campaign. Which is why I recommend learning a lot about Waterdeep, because it will become your central hub for this entire campaign. I don't believe I ever mentioned what the Cult of the Dragon's goal really is, but if it's not obvious from the title of the campaign, the Cult of the Dragon is trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible to bring back the mother of all evil dragon kind, Tiamat herself, to the mortal realm. They're acquiring as much gold as they possibly can, as many magic items as they possibly can. There's 5 dragon masks representing each chromatic dragon color that need to be all fused together to create a ritualic item to bring her back. They need red wizards to bring her back. They basically need everything they possibly can get their hands on to help bring Tiamat back to the mortal realm. And your party has to stop them. Obviously. Now this is in stark contrast to the way Horde of the Dragon Queen is run. Well, Horde of the Dragon Queen never has you staying in one place for far too long. You are constantly moving from position to position to place over and over and over again as the entire campaign goes. Whereas Rise of Tiamat doesn't do that at all and says, you're going to be here for quite a bit and you're constantly going to return here for quite a bit. So it's very, very jarring that both of these campaigns are part of the overall Tyranny of Dragons module, yet they play vastly different. Chapter 1 is when your party meets the Council of Waterdeep and meets all the NPCs that are involved in all the major political discussions going on in all the different factions. And after meeting the council, your party is given a bunch of stuff to go ahead and do before the next council meeting. This is going to be the reoccurring theme through this campaign. The first council meeting is going to have your party given the option to go on 2 separate quests. One is to go to the Sea of Moving Ice to find out any kind of information about a legendary item known as the Drakkhorn, or to go find Varum the White, who is one of the worm speakers for the Cult of the Dragon, a very, very powerful group amongst its cult. Now your party can do this in any order that they wish. I would recommend you do Sea of Moving Ice first and then Varum the White second, but to each their own. The Sea of Moving Ice has you guys going all the way up to, you guessed it, the Sea of the Moving Ice, to find out any information they can about a red tiefling who went off in search of any information about the Drakkhorn and then never returned. In the short, your party gets there, they find that this person is being held captive by a white dragon in his lair and is finding out all this kind of information that this white dragon stole a long time ago but does not have the knowledge to read or understand it. So it is getting this tiefling to do that all for them. And in return, the tiefling also gets to learn all this knowledge as well and find out more information about the Drakkhorn. But however, the Drakkhorn is not there. It used to be, but the Drakkhorn was then taken by the Cult of the Dragon a long time ago, and she doesn't know where it is. Nonetheless, at the end of this adventure, your party finds out that the Drakkhorn has been taken by the Cult of the Dragon and was taken somewhere far away, and they don't know where it is anymore, but it is no longer in the Sea of Moving Ice. You rescue the tiefling, you possibly defeat the white dragon, and you make your way back to Waterdeep. After which your party then goes to the Serpent Hills, to the Tomb of Diderius, where Varum the White has gone in search of his white dragon mask that he has misplaced, unfortunately. Upon getting there, your party then has to go through the Tomb of Diderius to find Varum the White or any remnants of Varum the White that may be there, and find out what happened to his white dragon mask and what's going on with the Cult of the Dragon. Varum's a bit of a pushover and will give you all the information that you need that's written in the book to help your party get along, and then your party can report back to the council all their findings from both the Sea of the Moving Ice and from Varum the White in the Serpent Hills. Both of these chapters include a dungeon crawl of some kind. The Tomb of Diderius is much more of a typical dungeon than the Sea of Moving Ice's dungeon. The Sea of Moving Ice is very much more of a dragon lair at the end of some winding tunnels underneath a giant floating iceberg, whereas the Tomb of Diderius is quite literally a tomb of mazes and such with mummies and what have you, much more akin to your standard dungeon crawl. Both of them are fun and interesting and can be a great joy for players who love going through dungeon crawls. If you have players that don't overly enjoy dungeon crawls, I would take out a couple of the traps and maybe just make the dungeons overall smaller, but in my personal opinion, the Sea of Moving Ice dungeon is far more interesting than the Tomb of Diderius dungeon, just from a lore and interesting perspective. The Sea of Moving Ice has a lot of interesting sculptures and frost giants frozen encased in ice, and an entire damn ship saved and encased in ice on display, which looks super fucking cool. Whereas the Tomb of Diderius is very much like a serpent trap with a lot of poison and weird mystery and what have you. There's also a couple of strange looking statues that if you stare at them too long, your mind just fucking goes and it just gets ruined, which can be cool. Some players might find it irritating, but your mileage may vary. Now, after you do both of those and you return to the Council of Waterdeep and discuss all your findings and a little bit more intrigue happens, you are then given your next 2 objectives, which are to find Nerovain, who is somewhere in one of the woods nearby, or to go have a secret meeting with a bunch of metallic dragons. Now, the Nerovain thing is very similar to the way the Varum one worked. Nerovain is one of the wearers of purple, but they're not a dragon mask holder, but they do have their own kind of dungeon crawl underneath a waterfall in the woods, and they have a little bit of political intrigue that ties into one of the NPCs that you're discussing at the council, but you can really choose how much or how little of that intrigue and tie-in you want to work with in your campaign. I found that I worked it in a fair bit, and it made one of my NPCs a much more outstanding character. But if you don't want to do that and you want your NPCs to strictly just be council members, then I wouldn't really tie that in all that much. However, the meeting with the metallic dragons is very different than every other session you've had so far. The meeting with the metallic dragons has your characters getting a silver dragon NPC who has secretly been a member of the council to fly your party way the hell out into the middle of nowhere on the top of a mountaintop to have a meeting with one of the 5 metallic dragons and have a discussion about what their role is in stopping the Cult of the Dragon from bringing Tiamat to this mortal plane. Now, of course, depending on how you roleplay dragons, they may be more inclined or less inclined to help the party overall with their regular mortal squabbling. I would recommend that the dragons play a little bit more intrigue and more involvement in this campaign overall, because while dragons are in fact dragons, and humans are in fact humans and what have you, Tiamat is considered a god, and Tiamat coming back to this realm is overall considered a bad thing that people don't want to happen. So playing these dragons as Tiamat coming back is not that important, what's it in for me, doesn't feel genuine when Tiamat is the god of all evil dragon kind. It should be a bigger problem than the book makes these dragons to play it out as. Nonetheless, each one of the dragons will have something that they want out of this in order for their help. One of the dragons wants a magical weapon back. One of the dragons wants you to build a temple in response to Bahamut, or what have you. Each one of them will have their own quest, side quest thing if you want, that will get their involvement in the fights to come. And after you have this meeting, you come all the way back to Waterdeep, and if you've done the Nerovain thing, you have the next council meeting, which gives your player characters another 2 quests to do. And these last 2 quests are Zonthal's Tower and a mission to Thay. Mission to Thay has your characters quite literally being teleported all the way to Thay. Thank God they don't have to travel that far on foot. This is where they find out that the red wizards from Thay that have been helping with the cult of the dragon are not well liked in Thay, and they want them back or killed. It's really whatever you decide they want to do with them, but nonetheless, Thay wants to help you. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, sort of thing. So after you have that little council meeting in a very creepy tomb with very creepy people, you then come back to the Council of Waterdeep with a brand new red wizard who's on your side. Absolutely, they're on your side, as well as Zonthal's Tower, which the book doesn't give you a whole lot of details about what Zonthal's Tower is in terms of its history or lore, so you may have to do a little bit of Google searching for that, but nonetheless, Zonthal's Tower is a place that resides on the side of a town, also called Zonthal's Tower for convenience, and it used to be the place of a very, very powerful wizard before that wizard seemingly disappeared into thin air, and now has an ancient blue dragon resting atop it, and the cult of the dragon seems to be going through this place quite a bit. If you ran Horde of the Dragon Queen, this ancient blue dragon is the same one that attacked Greenest in the very first chapter. So if you want, you can play that up a little bit and maybe have your characters roll a history check to see if they recognize certain features about this ancient blue dragon. The best part about Zonthal's Tower overall is the maze that your party has to go through in order to get to the tower. It's a very interesting puzzle that sometimes can have players pulling their hair out with its complex ways of doing things, but if you can nudge them in the right direction or word things certain ways, then I'm confident your characters will be able to get through it. The tower itself is interesting in the way that you teleport between different rooms, but the maze is by far the best part. Now, why is your party going to Zonthal's Tower? Well, the answer to that is that it appears one of the Cult of the Dragon members has tried to get out of the cult and wants to make a peace offering to the party members by bringing them one of the 5 dragon masks required for completing the ritual to bring Tiamat back to this mortal realm. Is it a trap? Sure as fuck sounds like it. Now, the book has it that this mask is actually a fake and it was a dupe for the party all along. I, however, didn't like that, and I wanted to give the party a win of some kind at this point, so I made it the real blue dragon mask. Considering that Galavan, the actual dragon mask holder for the blue dragon mask, is never once showing up in this entire campaign. He's talked about and referenced very, very briefly here or there, but otherwise he never shows up and is never talked about, so I felt, well, let's just give him the blue dragon mask. It has no consequence and it just gives him a little bit of a boost. However, if you don't want to do that and you want to run it as the book, be my guest. Now, after your player characters defeat Zonthal's Tower and they acquire the blue dragon mask, whether it's real or fake, who knows, and they make it back to the Council of Waterdeep and they fight the ancient blue dragon before that, now you have the final chapter to all of this, which is where you go to the Well of the Dragons, where the cult has been hoarding all their wealth and belongings and items needed for this ritual and red wizards and what have you in order to bring Tiamat back to this mortal realm, and it all comes crashing down to this. But wait, there's one chapter that this astute of you who may have read this campaign or run the campaign before I have not talked about, and that is the ambush chapter. The ambush chapter is really not a chapter at all. It's something that's supposed to happen about 3 to 4 times as this campaign runs on, where the Cult of the Dragon will constantly send members to go and fight your party at inopportune moments for the party members, while they're sleeping, while they're out and about, where they're in a vulnerable position, however you want to run it. However, the biggest problem I find with this campaign overall, which includes these assassination movements, is that the encounters that this book presents to your characters are not very hard at all. Almost every single encounter that your party is going to run into in this campaign are pushovers. They're not difficult, they're not life-threatening, they're very easy to go through. And I would recommend, if you are confident enough in your ability to run encounters, that you would amp up your encounters quite a bit, because at this point in the campaign, your characters have some magic items, they know how to play very well, they're very good at their character sheets and know what to do, and they will steamroll through every one of these encounters, with the exception of Tiamat. So I ended up using those assassination encounters very sparingly, and I made them tie into a couple of characters' backstories a lot more than just, you need to be stopped because you're thwarting our plans, blah! But nonetheless, with all that aside, you've made it to the end of the campaign, and now you're at the Well of the Dragons, and you have to go through the Well of the Dragons and find out how to stop Tiamat from coming out of the ground and making the mortal realm hers under her claw. So how do you do that? Well, that's a very difficult answer. So the book portrays that if your characters have done a certain amount of things, they can lower the potential fight with Tiamat in certain ways, lowering her challenge rating, giving her less legendary resistances and certain things if your party has acquired them throughout this campaign. There is, of course, the chance that your characters thwart the entire Rise of Tiamat altogether, and Tiamat never comes to the mortal realm, in which case, great on you. Your characters no longer have to fight a challenge rating 30 monster, in which there is only 2 in all of existence. If they don't, however, and they end up going through the Well of the Dragons and fighting all of the very, very pushover encounters that can be found in this dungeon, and they make their way all to the Temple of Tiamat, and Tiamat rises from the ground and your party has to fight them, I have no words to give you. I have no offerings of help or constructive ways to run this fight. The only thing I can say is a direct quote from the book. If your party ends up fighting Tiamat, regardless of what challenge rating she ends up being, because of all the things your characters have or have not done, I have one quote for you directly from the book that I full-heartedly agree with. Except as noted, Tiamat should not be arbitrarily weakened in the interest of a fair fight. Presenting the Dragon Queen as anything less than a deity undercuts the whole adventure. When the characters see Tiamat's heads forcing their way through the Red Wizard's portal, they will understand that this is no mere monster they face. As should be clear from her statistics in Appendix D, Tiamat is a god. And with those words in mind, I wish you the best of luck in the Rise of Tiamat. And if you're going to run the entirety Tyranny of Dragons as a whole, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope your players have fun. I personally enjoy Rise of Tiamat much more than Hoard of the Dragon Queen. It's structured much better, and the way the campaign plays out is a lot more fun and was a lot more memorable for me and my party. However, I made an enormous amount of changes, both to Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. I included their backstories a lot more, I changed a lot of NPCs' actions and reactions, I tied in a lot of more of their characters and backstories together to make everything seem connected and feel a lot more interesting. I cut out a lot of encounters, I added a couple more of my own, and I made it much more memorable and much more fun for the party that I had. With that said, I hope you have fun, I hope your players enjoy it, and I hope this review and any other of my video reviews have been helpful to you. Fuck you, airplane. Fuck you. Come on.